Hi, good day everyone. Today we would like to present about ethical issues in couple and family therapies. My name is Menaka and together with me, Rashmita Asogan, Sharmila Kalechavan and Kavinesh Amedalingam. Introduction on ethical issues in couple and family therapies. Individual-oriented therapies can face more ethical problems than couples and family therapies, yet codes of conduct and ethics have not always been of direct assistance. Whereas the appreciation of meaning is a major value gap between couple and family counseling and other mental health services, which is grounded in the foundation premise of the family as a system. Furthermore, the social and history background of relationship problems and the beliefs we hold about relationship are inextricably linked. We are regularly exposed to the myths regarding effective relationship and relationship pathology where the evidence based on common myth. New and emerging issues such as internet pornography, same-sex parenting abuse offer groundbreaking moments in the therapy room. Couple and family therapists have a unique perspective on the challenges that such situations entail, and they must be able to react appropriately or to know how, when, who to report matters when things get serious. Psychologists may be unprepared to deal with ethical issues in the workplace if they are unaware of them.
Hi madam, I'm Kavinesh Amardalingam and I'm going to speak on personal characteristics of family therapist, educational requirements for family therapy and also experiential of qualification for family therapy. First of all, personal characteristic of family therapist. Self-knowledge is hard for family therapist. Assume that trainees can benefit from an exploration of the dynamics of their own family of origin. Clinical proof supports a family of origin approach to supervision is an important dimension of training for therapists. Moving on to the educational requirements for family therapy. Family therapy program use three primary methods of training: detective coursework, master therapist videotapes, and trainee tapes for possession viewing by the trainees and supervisors. Regular supervision by an experienced family supervisor who, together with trainees, may view the session behind a one-way mirror and one videotape. Some of this involves gender awareness, culture sensitivity, and understanding of the effect of larger systems on family functioning. Finally, experiential of qualification for family therapy. Trainees develop their own way of interacting with family through direct clinical contact with families and also close supervision. Supervisory methods include audio tapes, videotapes, written process notes, co-therapy, corrective feedback by telephone, and also live supervision including calling the trainee out of the family session for consultation. Most graduate programs employ both didactic and experiential methods and supervised practice. Family therapy trainees can provide the practice of co-therapy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharmila and I'll be explaining about contemporary professional issues. Personal characteristics of therapy. There are three of them. Self-knowledge is important. Personal development is necessary for practice and significant to one's own ancestor. The second one is educational requirement. Specialization, clinical skills, and conceptual knowledge are required. There are three main training approaches. And the third one is experiential qualifications. The importance of supervised practice and clinical experience and various of supervisory techniques. Moving on to values in couple and family therapy. The first one is the strategies of therapists may be influenced by the values pertaining to marriage. The second, the therapist's value system influence the definition and formulation of problem, the therapist's objective and plans, and the path that the therapy takes. According to Gladling 2001, the content of values is important, but they emphasize the process of valuing, which includes their values, belief, and action. It is not the function of any therapist to take decisions on clients. The third one is the role of the therapist is to help family members. Take a closer look at what they are doing, make a honest assessment of how well their current behavior are serving them, and lastly, encourage them to make the improvement they need to make.
Hi, I'm Rashmita and I'll be explaining about the general and specific guidelines for family research and therapy. So over the years, several regulations were proposed in order to accompany the professionals in their activities. And currently, the American Psychological Association proposes 5 principles for the practice of psychological research and therapy. So the first one is beneficence and non-maleficence. So psychologists are actually responsible for the well-being of those they work with, either with human or animal. They must do not harm or try to minimize the negative consequences of their actions in those situations where conflict arises between their obligations. And also, professionals must control their religious, political, or financial interests in order not to interfere with other clients. So next one will be fidelity and responsibility. Psychologists are responsible for their clients, their colleagues, and also the society as well. They uphold the professional standards, accept responsibilities for their behavior, and cooperate with other professionals when needed. The third point will be integrity. Psychologists are honest and truthful about their work. When deception is ethically justifiable to maximize the benefit and minimize harm, the professionals must minimize any negative effect to the technique they have used. The fourth point will be justice. So every person has a right to benefit from the results of psychological research and practice. Also, psychologists must adhere to unbiased technique and recognize the limitations of their competence in offering their clients the best service available as possible. The last point will be respect for people's rights and dignity. This principle reinforces the obligation to be aware and respectful towards cultural and individuals' diversity. Psychologists must not be biased towards religion, gender, age, race, culture, or sexual orientations or disabilities and socioeconomic status. And also, they must offer equal service to everyone in need regardless of their different status.
I'm going to talk on the existing issues. The existing issue based on confidentiality. One of the primary concerns for family therapists is the nature of confidentiality. In the ethics code proposed by the AAMFT in 2001, confidentiality is regarded as being unbreakable without the consent of the person. Still, the nature of secret that may surface in a session is quite different from case to case. In some instances, the therapist might find out about an extramarital affair, but in other cases, the client might confess to abuse and other illegal activities. Some researchers presented the results of a survey where therapists were asked how they work with secrets during therapy. Their results shows that the interviewed specialists were divided in their answers. Some of them reported that they agreed with sharing secrets if the person who had the secret also agreed. The other side that they would not tolerate any secrets in their therapy sessions. A new issue regarding the ethics of therapy is the rise of telehealth therapy. Some clients find it difficult to go in person to therapists, so they choose to use telehealth practice instead. For an example, video messages, telephone, and etc. The downside of this is that the practitioner cannot ensure the privacy of the communication. Family research is also problematic in terms of confidentiality. In some cases, it might include themes that are sensible for the participants, and thus the researcher has the obligation not to disclose such information without proper coding and anonymity for the participant. One possible issue is that the nature of sensitive information is different from one couple to another. What one might consider normal, others might view as extremely intimate. A particular situation is that of research with children. A child might disclose information that is detrimental to the parent. without understanding that parent wants to keep that information secret or the consequence this can bring. Based on informed consent, it is almost impossible for a researcher or therapist to claim that a participant or client has expressed his informed consent because, by definition, research and therapy are exploratory. The research and therapeutic process are necessarily dynamic, and it could be more productive to negotiate the consent on a continual basis. This can cause problems as researchers or therapists repeatedly ask participants to continue, and they may tend to give up. A researcher presents a research where each participant ought to check a very long informed consent. Not only that, the attention span of the participant became limited after a while, for an example, damaging their understanding of each point of the consent, but they also started to complain about the scientific field. In this case, the informed consent led to a negative attitude towards the study instead of the better understanding of it. In family research, the entire family must sign the informed consent, even though in most cases only one member is particularly interested in the study. Not all family members can offer their consent. For an example, the information that a member offers may concern another member who didn't give his or her consent. Moving on, based on consequences of the research. In family research, new problems arise. Firstly, the outcome is different. While in individual research, the outcome is measured for each participant. In family research, especially when therapy is involved, the outcome is not that easy to determine. Secondly, a sensitive subject can arise during the interaction between the research and the participants. Thirdly, the longitudinal research leads to some interesting ethics dilemmas. Given its nature during such studies, the families go through different changes and stages. The researchers have more chances to discover problematic behaviors inside a family. Thus, a dilemma is created in which one can discuss problem while also respecting the confidentiality of the participant and the principle of no harm.
Based on religions and values, everyone have a different set of values, and sometimes the therapist and the client can find themselves on the opposing side of such values. While religious values play a significant role, general attitudes may also have an impact on therapeutic practice. Therapists must be careful not to influence clients' religious values based on their own belief. Some clients, especially those with a religious background, may have strong opinion regarding marriage and divorce. A similar view can appear when a therapist is a religious person. In each case, the professional must not impose his or her opinion and discuss the discrepancies with the clients, according to Russo and Turlick in 2011. Also, when the differences appear to be conflicting, the therapist can end the session and propose a different colleague for the couple. Margolin, 1982, addresses 3 values that can impact how therapists function within the session. The first is preservation of the family. A couple goes to therapy solely to have the therapist enforce their commitment to continue the relationship or to just divorce. Although the AAMFT guidelines specify that the responsibility of a decision falls only on the couple, it is possible for the therapist to offer some subtle cues towards one decision or the other. These cues may come from one's own personal experience, religious views, or from the unconscious preference for one of the partners. The opinion on how a practitioner must act in this situation are different. Some authors consider that a therapy must influence the couple towards a decision if he or she feels it is the right one, while others denies the influence whatever the situation is, according to Ewell and Stewart in 1972. Finally, Margolin in 1982 considered it's important for a psychologist to be conscious of certain tendencies in order to manage them.
Extramarital affairs. At the extreme, a therapist can either endorse an extramarital affairs or explicitly discourage it. The advocates of the first choice say that such a relationship might be beneficial for the individual. Still, it is more detrimental to the other. When in favor of second choice, the therapists believe that they are working for the marital relationship and the termination of the extramarital one means that the partner is also willing to work for it. The drawback is that one can maintain the affair in secrecy, thus damaging the therapist's efforts. Moving on, sex roles. In some families, the traditional view of the sex role is acceptable for both members. In other families, one member has more progressive views than the other. Moreover, the therapists tend to have their own opinions on this subject. Balancing all these views can prove to be difficult. Finally, any therapist can undoubtedly affect consumers' relationship. So, the challenge is not how to cut off the influence and manipulation, but how to effectively use them in clients' best interests. Moreover, allowing a couple to disagree during a counseling season is observation and evaluation can lead to aggression and emotional detachment if emotional calming is not achieved before the end of this season.
Next, we're talking about gender sensitive. So one important aspect of gender sensitive involves helping family members better understand the false gender stereotyping they have internalized and address the ways in which these stereotypes work against maintaining closeness in intimate relationships. So for an example, if a husband believes that he must appear strong and confident to his wife, he will likely to be inhibited in sharing his fears and insecurities with her. So the task of the couple therapist in this situation is to help the spouse realize they do not have to be bound by gender-driven belief and can choose less restrictive options that enable more open communication and problem solving. So moving on to the gender sensitive couples and family therapy over here. So it's actually like we need to try to help women and men move beyond stereotyped gender roles. Next will be our perception of gender is actually related to our cultural background, because like we all came from different culture, so we all have our own perspectives. Ethical practice is enhanced if therapists are aware of the history and impact of gender stereotyping as it is reflected in socializing process in families. Moving on to the feminist perspective on family therapy. So the clinical practice of family therapy has been filled with outdated patriarchal assumptions, so grounded on a male bias perspective for gender roles and gender-defined functions within the family. Feminist view focused on gender and power in relationship and encourage a personal commitment to challenge gender inequality. Cultural gender stereotypes and the influence this socialization has on relationship and a family are challenged by feminist therapies. So family therapists advocate for defined changes such as social structure, equality, power in relationship, the right to self-determination, freedom to pursue a career in outside of the home, the rights to an education. So next will be a non-sexist perspective on family therapy. So it is critical that family therapists take whatever steps that are necessary to account for general issues in their practice and to become a non-sexist family therapist. So according to a study made by Margolin in 1982, family therapists are particularly vulnerable to the following biases, which are assuming that remaining married would be the best choice for a woman. Next would be demonstrating less interest in a woman's career than a man's career, because they always think that women need to focus more on a man's career. Next would be encouraging couples to accept the belief that child rearing is solely the responsibility of a mother. So as we all know, it needs to be shared, and the father should take full responsible as well. So next will be showing a different reaction to a wife's affair than to a husband's. The last one will be giving more importance to satisfying the husband's needs than to satisfy the wife's needs. So that's all for my part, and thank you.
Intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence is a direction of study that become more important in the last decades. Psychologists must adhere to set ethical standards for both the victim and the aggressor in both study and therapy. While the preference of IPV varies across different countries, it is nevertheless a reality of our society, one that is still very problematic. The pros and cons of this participation must be equitably distributed, and the researcher must take special measures to protect the vulnerable participants. The decision to treat IPV individually or within conjoined couple therapy warrants treatment consideration that ultimately affect the safety of the clients. Couples counseling is ineffective for clients who have engaged in intimate terrorism or violent resistance, and they must be handled separately or in groups. As yet, there are no established criteria for physical partner abuse. However, open-ended assessment questions and assessment questionnaires can be useful tools for the therapist on ongoing basis. Treatment contracts, protection plans, and no violence contracts are all staples of dealing with IPV couples.
We have two case studies to talk about. The first case study. Profile of the first case study. Couple married for over 10 years in their mid-30s. Both have a college education and are professionally employed. The couple has no children. Their reason for counseling. Counseling was initiated by the wife, who had found out only 4 days to contacting the agency that her husband had an affair, and both of them wanted to repair and improve their relationship. The couple had a total of 6 seasons over 3 months. The first season was getting agreement that both couple wanted to repair and improve the relationship. Both parties agrees to not introduce punishment into the relationship as a result of the affair. The couples were given some new basic relationship skills and given homework to complete in between seasons, including not discussing the affair. In season 2, 10 days later, and the focus was not building a unfit goal for the relationship. 4 goals for relationship were mutually identified and agreed to. Couples were given more relationship skills and homework to practice.
So the next 3 sessions were spread out over 2 months and focused on relationship skills that targeted communications, perceptions, and internal control, all with the couple doing homework in between sessions. The final session, the clients evaluated how they did meeting their goals, and they felt they got about 70 to 85% of each of their goals, which was satisfactory for them. They felt confident with their new relationship skills, trust had been restored, forgiveness was given, and communication dramatically improved, and their couple was established in their new and improved relationship behaviors. So the success factor of this is the couple came in quickly after finding out about the relationship. Both individuals in the relationship agreed to do not introduce punishment into the relationship. This couple was focused on the present and building the future relationship. The incident and issues of the past were only used for as a guidance to help them know that what worked and what did not work. The couples was highly motivated to repair and improve their relationship and would complete their homework and came prepared to fully engage during the counseling sessions.
The second case study is a professional couple married for 7 years. The couple is in their late 30s, had a history of infertility and infertility treatments that resulted in 2 children in the last 3 years prior to treatment. The couple came into counseling because of dramatically reduced intimacy, increased fighting, difficulty communicating, and negative perception of each other's behavior. The number of sessions. Couple had a total of 12 sessions, with each client engaging in 2 individual sessions within 5 months. The first session focused on stabilizing the relationship and providing them with basic relationship skills. The homework started to focus the couple on building positive regard towards each other.
As for this case study, complicating and success factors are this couple had a more complicated, a long-term history of infertility, tension and trauma that lasted a few years until they sought counseling, resulting in a more negative view of each other and a reduction in confidence and positive regard for one another. Individual sessions were suggested as a result of the increased number of sessions for the pair. The pair, on the other hand, always had enough good regard for each other and were committed to the counseling processes because they appreciated what they had earlier in their relationship. Although the pair that had some setbacks at first and took longer to incorporate their new relationship skills than the previous couple, they preserved and completed the majority of the work. The client was effective from the start because they gave counseling ample time to focus on the practice their new skills while receiving input and advice on both relationship and individual issues. Since they were complicating factors and the problems had been progressing for a longer period of time before coming for support, this couple needed more sessions.